So firstly, thanks for turning up. I was driving up the M1 this morning at 5 o'clock this morning thinking, what if nobody turns up? What do I do? So thank you for coming. Steve Wilson, so I look after player support at Jagex. We're the UK's largest independent game studio based in the beautiful city of Cambridge. I'm going to talk to you about player support as a route into a game studio. Now I know your career plans will be, you get your first and then a studio will snap you up as a principal content developer or a game engine architect. You get a six-figure salary and then you buy your Audi R8. So that's the kind of what you guys think will happen. But this is a kind of plan B just in case things don't work out that way. And the thinking is that when you go into the competitive marketplace and you're looking for a role in a game studio, you'll be with lots of other people who'll be very similar to you and have similar degrees, and you probably won't have much experience of working in the industry, so it's difficult to stand apart from other people. And there's this principle of kind of ABC, and the A is the access. So if you're already in a studio in a support role, you have access to everybody in that studio. If you step back and think about the recruitment process, you'll get your portfolio ready, you'll have a telephone interview, you'll probably have some kind of technical assessment, then you might get called in for an interview, you'll have all the nerves the night before, travel to the studio, meet someone, and at the end of all of that work, you'll probably get a half-hour interview with someone to convince them that they should employ you. If you're already working in the studio, you've got access to those people all day long, every day. You can sit and have lunch with the principal architect one day. You can sit and have lunch with the head of design the next day. You might be able to sit with the CEO on a Wednesday. There'll be a staff party and you could be chatting to some character artists. You've got access to all of those people. That's the A. The B is the budget. It is very expensive to recruit people. You've got to do the advertising, you've got to do the screening of the CVs, you might have to pay travel and accommodation to get people into the studio. There's all the management in the studio that need to give up their time to interview you and talk to you, and there's an opportunity cost for that. They're not doing their job whilst they're interviewing you. And actually it's far cheaper if there's somebody already in the studio that can do the job. So if you come into a player support team and you want to be a character artist, join in the support team, you're in the studio, talk to the art team, talk to the artists, and when they're recruiting, the hiring manager's first thought will be, is there anyone already in the studio that can do this job before I go and spend £20,000 recruiting someone externally? And C of the ABC is the CV. When you're going for a job, you can still look for other jobs whilst you're working in a support team at a game studio, but if you go to another job or another interview, you can say, I'm already in a studio. I'm not doing my passion. I'm not following the job that I really want to do, but I wanted to get into a studio. I wanted to find out how the games industry worked. I kind of broaden my horizons outside of my key discipline that I'm trained in. And that might just be the thing that separates you from other candidates when you go looking at another studio. And of course, you'll have some money, you better pay your bills. So I'm going to talk to you a bit about Jagex, tell you about that, why it's such a great studio, and hopefully you'll write it on your list of studios that you'll be looking to go to in the future. And then lift the lid a bit on player support. Because we are a support function for an entertainment product and our customers are gamers, it's a bit different to traditional customer support, and there might be a few things that surprise you, so I'll take you through that. So that's our logo. So I've got a couple of minute video now, a little stinger show reel that just gives you a little insight into Jagex and how immersed our community are in our product. And we call it the Living Games video. I'll play that for you now. Cool, so has anyone heard of RuneScape? Our flagship, yeah, everyone's heard of RuneScape. Okay, good, that's a good start. So that's the flagship product. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the studio itself. So you've probably been to a game studio at some point, I'm assuming, but I'll just show you a little bit about what Jagex looks like. Here's the staff recreation area. We've got a pub built into the studio. That's quite cool. Very good for creative types. Not so good for people on code review or working live ops on a live game. The pub becomes free on payday as well, so that's quite cool. Although I've always thought it's probably better if it's free the day before payday. That's the day you need it to be free, yeah, not payday. But anyway, that's a pub we've got built into the studio. Stuff you'd expect, like a pool table. This is a gaming cave, separate network to the rest of the studio where people can go and play their own games. We have a broadcast studio within the studio, 4K broadcast where we do our Twitch live streams and stuff like that. We also use it, like the CEO speaks to us once a month. He goes in there and live streams within the studio, so everyone in the studio can, on their computer screens, watch the stream and find out what's going on in the company. There's a bit more in the broadcast room. This is a central atrium space in the studio where we do our team briefings and things like that. And we also invite our charity partners to come in and talk to us. We do things like, at Halloween, we show scary films through the night. Everyone gets drunk and bar and then goes in there and watch scary films. We show all the sports things, all the World Cup and stuff like that. This is top level arts. This is concept art direct from the artist, the original artist, which we use to decorate the studio. So when they've done this level of art to go into the game, we actually use the original art pieces to decorate the studio. It's a bit lost on the image here, but when you see it up, it's fantastic quality up close. This is a meeting room with a one-way glass on it. So it's got this concept art on one side, but when you're inside the room looking out, it's clear glass. So it's just a quite cool thing to do. And that's what the meeting rooms look like. I have picked the nicest meeting room, but yeah, that's what the meeting rooms look like. So that's a whistle-stop tour of our studios in Cambridge. Who are Jagex? We've been around for nearly 20 years now, almost unheard of in the games industry. RuneScape is the game. Massively profitable $1 billion franchise, and we're all based in Cambridge. We've got about 400 staff in the studio and about 260 million accounts created over the lifetime of the product. Loads of things that we've won. I mean, the most notable things is, we've got the Guinness World Record for the largest free MMO in the world. And we won a BAFTA last year when we put old school RuneScape onto mobile. RuneScape itself, it's been around, streamed a lot. Loads of people play, 6 years is the average play time for some in our game. So if you think about sort of mobile games that go into apps and they're not there sort of a month later, and then we have our average play time of about 6 years. Hugely updated game, really evolving. And the old school version, which is how RuneScape was in 2006, or as one of my favourite quotes is, when RuneScape was shit, is actually people really like playing the retro feel of the old school RuneScape game. Hugely streamed, really democratic game as well. So our players vote all content changes, has to have pass a vote of 75%. The players control what happens in the game and how it gets updated. And we come up with suggestions to say, look, we want to introduce this new cool thing, but if they say no, then it doesn't go in. And then, of course, we went on mobile quite recently. RuneScape games come to mobile soon. Old school is already there. First major Western MMORPG to go onto a mobile platform. And already a really huge success story, as I say, with a BAFTA last year to crown that one off for us. So the player support, this is our kind of mission as a player support team, to deliver great customer experiences, and that's how we plan to do it. I'm going to whiz through this a little bit because it's a little bit corporate. But this is stuff that we get contacted about each year. About 500,000 people contact us for account recovery and payment stuff, and they need help for that sort of things. But then there's all the out-of-hours stuff, the 24/7 stuff. So we have about 80,000 bugs a year in the game that get reported to us. Sounds like we release really buggy content. It's not that at all. This is all minor graphical bugs and little typos and things like that are all included in that figure. But we do call out about 170 call outs a year. And by call out, we mean waking a game dev up at 3 o'clock in the morning and saying, can you come into the studio, please, and fix it? The game's broken. Hijacking, account hijacking and account takeover, quite an issue in most online games. We have about 100,000 accounts hijacked a year through phishing and things like that. So we do proactive kind of hijack account management where we try and identify that accounts are hijacked. We look at movements in locations, IPs, UIDs and things like that. Obviously you can access our game if you can access the internet. So if I go on holiday to France and play the game, it might look like I'm hijacked when I'm actually not. So we do need to have some safeguarding around that. Community safety and moderation, something you might not have thought about. We have to keep people safe online. So we moderate about 4.8 billion lines of chat. a couple of hundred escalations a year. An escalation means we're so concerned about a player that we need to actually involve someone else like a police or a third-party agency to actually go and knock on a door and make sure someone's okay. So that's the sort of side to the player support that you might not have considered. And then the final thing is the anti-cheating, because some people cheat at games. I know none of you would. But yeah, we ban 6 million accounts a year for using bots and macros in our game to farm gold out of the game and sell on the illegal black markets. We're a whole dedicated team within player support that just deal with anti-cheating. This is a breakdown of kind of stuff and how it comes in. So mainly tickets or emails, that's how people contact us, but also things like Twitter. I mean, 200,000 tweets a year. You know, these are fairly big volumes of stuff that we have to deal with. We measure our satisfaction with a little thumbs up, thumbs down that players can give us on how we've dealt with them, and it averages out as about 84%. And we respond to people typically, you know, about a quarter of the people within an hour and everyone within 24 hours. And we don't have live chat. I mean, you can't pick up a phone and talk to us. So actually, it's all written correspondence. So those response times pretty good. So we have this ethos approach, and this is what makes a support for a game a bit different to a regular if you're just a support for something like a gas company or something like that. So we have these kind of 4 cornerstones. So the first is you don't need sign off to delight a customer. And what we mean by that is our agents are gamers themselves. They do the right thing for that person. They understand gamers and how they work. And that means you might do a different solution for a different customer, but we look at the individual customer and say, actually, this person's been playing for 10 years, has paid us $2,000, you know, they're a really big fan. They get a better treatment than somebody else. And all customers are not equal. And we have the freedom to do the right thing each time. The Jagex no, which is to say yes to every customer. So the story about this is a Disney story, which is if you go to Disney and you queue up for 3 hours for the most popular ride and you've got a kid with you and you get to the front and they say, can't come on the ride because the kid's not tall enough. What Disney do is they say, here's a certificate. When you come back next year and you're tall enough to go on the ride, you can come straight to the front of the queue and you can go around 3 times. So they're still saying no, they're saying you can't come on the ride, go away, but it's a no with a nice kind of thing. So we try and do a similar thing for our customers as well. So if, for example, we've banned someone who's made a poor decision and cheated in the game and we ban them, and they might contact us and say, can you unban us? We'll say, we can't unban you, but what we do is you've got some unused membership on the account, we can move that to another account for you, we can give you a bit of a stepping stone to start a new account or something like that. Still saying no to the unban, but trying to dress it up slightly. 1 to 1,000 rule fix for the many, and what that's about is when we get contacted by a gamer, it's very easy to just dismiss that this person doesn't know how to play the game and they misunderstood something and just say they don't know what they're doing and kind of dismiss it. But actually this thought process is there might be 1,000 other people actually experiencing the same problem and we need to do something about it. So we go and knock on the door, find out this person's experienced this bug, they're saying this really weird thing happens. It sounds really unlikely, but let's just check it out just in case it is true and there's actually 1,000 people experiencing it. This is a style guide, which we call 3PFG, not very snappy, but positive, personal, professional, friendly gamer. And it just means that that's how we talk to people. We just try and have that kind of voice when we talk to people. We try and reflect how the people speak to us as well. So if people speak to us contact us in a really casual way, so we'll get people contact us and they'll say, hey Jagex, my account's broken, fix it dude, or something like that. You know, we'll reply in that, hey bro, your account's all sorted, have a good weekend, thumbs up, whatever. You know, we try and reflect the tone of the voice. If a parent contacts us and says, I'm really worried about my son that plays your game, I think people are talking to him really inappropriately, you know, we won't say, hey bro, we fixed that, you know, have a good weekend. We'll do a dear sir, madam type response. And this is the final kind of ethos approach. We call this the stakeholder triangle. So these are the 3 people impacted by everything that the support team do. Players or customers, Jagex the company and the employee. And whatever we do when we're servicing a customer will have an impact on somewhere within that triangle. So the example we give is if we're contacted by a player who says, actually I'm really bored of playing RuneScape now, can you refund me my last 12 months of membership please? And people do things like that. What we could say is, no, you read the terms and conditions, we've got your money now, you know, go away, we're not interested. Now that decision would be right down here towards Jagex. We get to keep all the money, but it's a long way from the player who's really unhappy, and the employee probably doesn't feel really happy about saying that to someone. What we could do is say, okay, here's all your money back, no problem, thanks for letting us have it for a little while, but it's back in your bank account now. That would be right up with the player. The money's away from Jagex. The player's really happy, but the employee's probably just sitting there thinking, I'm just giving money away. I'm not doing a very good job here. What we could say is something like, well, look, we're sad to see you leaving the game. We can't refund you because you've already used that membership, but look, I've given you a month of free membership. You can go and play now if you want to carry on, and if you ever want to come back to the game in the future, we'll do you a good deal. We'll give you a half-price membership or something like that. That would sit kind of in the middle. The player's quite happy. They've got something. They didn't get everything they wanted, but they've got something. We've done a customised solution, and we've retained the money in our bank account, so the decision kind of sits nicely in that central point. So the challenge of running a live game. So this is a fairly basic model of how a normal product or company interacts with their customers. So if we looked at something like British Gas, British Gas, the customer contacts British Gas and they have a one-way communication like that. In games, it's a little bit different. This is actually a live model of one person's gameplay session in one of our games and all of the people that they interacted with during that session. So if one of these people's had a poor experience with our support team, that's the potential impact they can have in talking about that service they've received to other people. So we're very mindful of that. They're all game account names, not real names, so don't GDPR me. Well, the risk to life stuff, so I spoke about this a little bit earlier, and you can access the internet, you can access our games, people online, and sometimes people are feeling like suicidal, they're feeling depressed, they're talking about drug addiction. We have a lot of players in North America, might be talking about things like school shootings, and there's a potential risk to life here, and we have to take that stuff seriously. So where we identify that, we get the person help, we get the police to go and knock on their door, check they're okay, we call it a welfare intervention check. And very often we hear back from the police saying, actually, we went there, this guy did have a gun, he was feeling down, we intervened, we've arrested him, and kind of being a bit melodramatic, but we've kind of stepped in and made a real difference there in a real world situation. And then there's the child protection stuff. So people will use platforms like games as a way to groom children or distribute child abuse media and things like that. And it's kind of something that we're quite open about it, and we're saying, look, we think it happens everywhere on the internet because we know that it does, but at least we're doing something about it and being proactive, which is better than just saying, we don't have a problem when everyone does. So we monitor all the chat, we identify this stuff, we work with companies like the Internet Watch Foundation. What they do is when they have offenders, like people that have groomed children and things like that, and they seize their computers, they take chat logs and everything from their computers and find out the type of language and the type of approach and how they talk to kids to groom them, and then they give us that information, and then we build that into engine heuristics that monitor our chat and identify other people that might be exhibiting similar sort of behaviour. So it's all quite Big Brother, but with the very best intent of trying to keep people safe online. So we get these words and phrases. Jagex is a system you might have used. It's a way of searching words for leet spellings and normal spellings to find chat phrases. We monitor about 47 million lines a day. It's a huge amount of chat. And then we log them within a plus a 3-minute window and respond to them. And we do that 7 days a week. We get about 350 matches a day of child protection issues, which sounds awful, but actually you've got to bear in mind that if people are talking about you, if you have a celebrity in the media that's been exposed as a child abuser or something like that, people will be talking about that whilst playing our game, and therefore they're using the sort of words and language that will trip these heuristics. So actually it's not too much of a concern that there's that many. The majority are false positives. Then we do get a bit of end user license violation stuff that comes up in these chats. So that's like things like, because we gateway users at 13, so someone might admit to being 10 years old when we gateway to 13, so we'd use that as a platform violation, remove them from the platform. And then we get a very tiny % of credible stuff where we do escalate it. We do contact a child protection agency and we think a child's at risk here. These are some of the agencies that we work with. You'll recognise some of the names probably. The NCA in the top right-hand corner, they're the police with the guns that you see on the news sometimes, breaking into houses and stuff. They have a division just looking at child protection. UKIE obviously know. Fair Play Alliance is a industry-only collaborative partnership of companies that think in a similar way to us and want to keep people safe online. It's quite a closed group at the moment, but we work together to try and share best practice. Superseller in the group, they started it, and we're a founding member of it as well. The Department for Culture, Media and Sport is quite an interesting one. So that's a government agency, and they're looking at the immersive technologies things, and they're particularly looking at gaming at the moment. And they're looking at things like loot boxes and skins and things like that, but they're also looking at gaming addiction, play times, MTX upselling to under 18s and things like that. And there's a whole white paper coming out next year called the Online Harms White Paper. And that sets out standards that's going to be in law for any game supplier in the UK who has UK customers about how you sell to under 18s, playtime, gambling, and things like that. We've been working with them as they pull that document together. It'll be out. There's this small matter of deciding who runs the country and leaving Europe, and once that's sorted out, I think the government will then start working on this stuff, so we'll probably see that in the first quarter of next year. I spoke about the anti-cheating stuff. If you're aware of gold farming in MMOs, it's a huge issue for us. Just very briefly, you know, people kind of farm money out of our game using macros or bots and then sell that virtual currency on black markets. They're normally coming from countries like Russian Federation, Asia, China, Venezuela. This is where a lot of these companies are based. Quite hard to track down, quite hard to deal with. And from the players' experience, they probably will never get the coins that they buy from these black market sellers. They might not, that's a gamble. They will probably also steal your credit card and use that to buy other things with as well. So it's just a thing, and it just undermines the whole kind of ethic of the game as well. The RuneScape game works like many MMOs, you know, put in the time, you get the reward, you can't just go and buy the coins. So we have a team that deal with this stuff. We take down gold selling sites. We use the police and domain managers around the world to try and do that. Not always very easy to do, and they do pop up again. It's a bit whack-a-mole, so you know, as you deal with one, another one pops up with a very similar name a few days later. Private servers are people who have taken our code and just infringing our IP and running versions of our game that's not ours. So we take those down, and then there's stuff you'd expect to see in gaming like account selling and botting clients. We also look at copyright protection on the app stores for people who put unauthorized apps out for our games, quite a few of those around. Even things like merch, people producing like RuneScape t-shirts that aren't ours, that's something that we look at. Illegal open source clients, and any unauthorized IP use of our names or terms in videos or anything that we don't agree with. So again, areas of the support team that you might not have considered. So what do we do with these people that we find? Well, we have about 325,000 people online at any time. That's the amount of chat, 46.8 million. We get about 25,000 player reports a day, abuse reports coming in, huge volumes coming in. And we issue just under 23,000 offences to players every single day. Those offences break down to, of those 23,000, 99.22 real world trading and botting. Huge, huge issue for MMOs. It's where the majority of our offences lie. There's a little bit of cheating, so it's a genuine player that's not actually making any financial gain out of things, but just wants to cheat their way through the game, tiny little 0.37%. We get the very offensive language stuff, all the kind of race hate and that sort of stuff. Scam and spam stuff that you just get in any public kind of chat interaction scenarios. Then there's all other rule breaking comes together, and a tiny, tiny little bit of the online safety stuff that I spoke about. So if I have tempted you to think about maybe joining a support team, or at least having it as a plan B, this is how we go about it. So we do CV screening, as you probably expect us to do, and then a telephone interview. We then ask shortlisted candidates into the studio and do group exercise. So we get a group of people together in a competitive environment, and they have a very simple task, which would just be something like come up with a mission statement for the studio and just work as a team to do that. And we're not really looking at who talks the loudest and who takes the lead and all that sort of thing. It's about how people interact, what the ideas and suggestions are, what words do they choose and why, have they thought about stuff about our stakeholder triangle, how big the game is, how people feel about the game. They're trying to build that stuff into the mission statement. There's a traditional sort of interview that you might expect. Data analysis tests, so that can actually be done remotely or in the studio, but where we present scenarios to people to deal with. And then customer responses tests. We write made up examples of things that customers might say to us, and we use a bit of, you know, poetic license and make them a bit better than they might be, but just see how people would respond to them, what they might say to them. Are they really creative? Do they reflect the language? Do they use our style guide? Do they chuck a couple of jokes in if we've done a joke the other way? You know, are they picking up on those things? Do they sound like a gamer? Do they sound like the cool older brother? Because that's who we're trying to sound like when we respond to our player customers. And then people join the team, and this is the sort of step processes to go through the team. So we take people through the ethos, the introduction stuff, and then we take those elements I was talking about, the 1 to 1000 and the 3 PFG, that's the style guide. our golden rule and the Jagex know, then we talk about decision making, and then finally how to help people with account issues. And then we have this skill checkpoint, and that means that people have to be proficient and knowledgeable in all of those things. And if they're not, they have to backtrack, and it's almost like you have to pass each element of this. And then once you've passed the skill check, you'll then understand how to do payment issues, dealing with things like fraud, friendly fraud, credit card fraud, refunds, that sort of thing. Skill checked again, then the technical help stuff, that might be clients, bugs, that sort of thing. Skill checked. PDR's performance review thing, so that's where we'll set objectives for people for the future, and that's where people might have a conversation where they say, I actually want to be a graphic artist, but I'm working in player support because I just want to get into a studio. That's where that conversation would happen. And then finally they get to meet the VP of the studio on the Friday before they start in the team on the Monday. This is the life cycle of someone that joins the team. So we recruit people, we assess them, they go through training, and then they join the team. And in most companies and studios, that would be the end of your journey. You're now in the team and doing the job. But we invest in people. We say, look, what do you really want to do? What's your career aspirations? How can we help? How can we support you? Do you need some additional training? Would you like to spend half a day with another team in the company? What do you need to grow as a person? And then because we invest that time, we feel that people then add value. They're not just a regular customer support rep, they become that added value person that goes the extra mile, that writes the cool thing that'll end up on Reddit, that does the strange, unusual response to a customer that everyone's talking about on social media for a day. But then the cycle continues, because then when our content team are recruiting for a content developer, back to what I was saying earlier, they'll say, what about that person in player support that keeps coming up to us and saying, can they do a bit of work for free, and can they sit with the team for an hour, and they've got some stuff at home they've worked on, and could they show it to us? What about that person that's always bothering us? Should we recruit them rather than going externally? And in an ideal world, they do recruit them into that team, they get assessed, trained, team, invest, add value, and the cycle continues. About 1 in 10, it's actually 9% of people at Jagex started their first day, walked through the door in player support, and are not doing that job now and not working in player support, including the head of design and the game director, so some fairly senior roles as well. So we have this thing that we call kind of pick your path, which I've just got some illustrations over here. So this is kind of the moderation and safety and keeping children safe online and that sort of thing. You can choose that path within player support. You say, that's what I want my expertise to be. Or you can say, I want to be a technical expert. I want to give really strategic technical advice to players and make sure they're having the best experience. So that's another type of role. You can be the stealthy undercover, dealing with all the cheating and the botting and the real world traders and the gold farmers and the IP infringement, and have a very sort of a secret lifestyle. That's that route. Or you can take up this kind of leadership route. I want to manage people, I want to lead teams, I want to work in studio management rather than an individual discipline within the studio. That's just a pretentious word cloud. It's there to remind me that there's now another video. I've got a video here now. When we ran an assessment day for people to join us, ice cream. When I'm talking about why Jagex is a great place to work. So when it's hot days in the summer, we have an ice cream van turn up and give staff free ice cream. I didn't mention it, but that's why it's there. So when we last did an assessment day, when people joined our team, we actually filmed some people, some candidates turning up for the assessment day. And then obviously we knew that of this big group of people, some people would be successful and go on to work with us. So we then continued to film them as they went through their journey of training and joining the studio. And then we're able to sort of mash it all together and make a little 2-minute video about what it's like to be assessed and join our team. So that's the video I've got for you now.
My impressions when I first walked through the door at Jagex was, wow, this is a place that I really want to work at. It looked so modern and it was very welcoming, very exciting.
Walked into the atrium and was blown away by the high spec PCs. It just looked like a really great place to work. I've been a player for 10 years, and getting to come to the assessment day was like a dream come true.
We first had a chance to meet all the staff and see the building through and through and get to really understand the vibe.
And then when we took off to do some group work, where we had to come up with a company mission statement and present it back, so they were kind of testing how we worked. I thought that was really good, it was really enjoyable, it wasn't awkward.
And then quite swiftly moved on to ethos.
So this ethos just seemed like a massive part of everything at Jagex.
It's really clear, it's very thorough, and it's very balanced. Nothing overshadows anything else with the stakeholder triangle. You've got Jagex, its employees and its players. and every point is hit perfectly. We're always told we need to hit that sweet spot that covers all three. The 1 to 1,000 rule seemed like a great concept to me. It seemed like it was going to be really helpful.
I never really worked anywhere where they have an ethos to help the customer. Everywhere I've been before is kind of the people against the customers almost.
We got to meet the customer service team, the director. It was quite an exciting opportunity to see the people that we'd be working with, and really gave me the impression that this is the company that I want to work for, where there's no closed doors. I can speak to anyone I need to if I have any queries.
All the management team made me feel really at home. They all seemed really down to earth, which is what you always want in management.
When I left the assessment day, I was just gutted it was over really, because it was a really awesome day, and I just remember thinking, I hope I've got the job.
Sort of find yourself leaving thinking, I have to work here. I have to work here.
I finished my assessment on a Friday and found out the following Monday that I'd been offered the role, and I got a phone call.
Put the phone down and was like, yes, I got the job at Jagex.
I've currently been at Jagex for 6 weeks now, and the training period for me has been incredible.
We've done so much, and we've covered a lot of information.
It's really engaging, it's really interesting. I find myself always wanting to find out what the next step is or how to tackle a new problem, and it's been really hands-on.
We deal with real problems right from the first day. It definitely shows that they're rewarding us and they trust us.
I felt that we were given our jobs because we had the ability to make difficult decisions. And it's something that we were expressed on the first day, that even though there will be times that we may make mistakes, there are going to be more times where we're going to get the job done right because we are taught properly how to approach every situation.
Free PFG is a really great thing to have when you're trying to reply to a customer.
It's really easy to remember, and it kind of removes the need for automatic response.
When I found out that I do not need permission to profitably delight a customer, it was a very freeing piece of information to learn, because it means that I do not have to go to my team leads necessarily every single time that I want to help a player out. I am empowered as a player support specialist to help out a player in the way that I see fit.
The Jagex No has taught us that even when we're saying no to a customer, they can still go away and feel positive about their interaction with us.
I've had a lot of exotic and really quite weird and wonderful experiences together, because day to day you see things that you've never seen before, and it's sort of that whole, guys, have a look at this, have a look at what I've got, and then we all come together, and it's been a really wonderful experience working together.
I'm a lot more confident now than before. I was quite shy. I made some awesome friends, and it's nice just to want to come to work every day.
There's definitely an element of work hard, play hard. If you do your best, they will reward you, and it's been made really fun as well.
The training here is really different from anywhere I've went before. It's been such a long experience, and I feel like I'm actually equipped to deal with anything on the floor rather than just the basic day-to-day things.
I'm a lot better trained than I've ever been before in any other job. I feel like I'm ready to go out there and do some good work.
Cool, so I was just going to close by saying, you know, Jagex, I would say it because I work there, but I've been there 13 years. I love the place, everyone is friends. We really do love what we do. It's a fantastic environment to be in, and I hope you do put it on your shortlist. We do all the things like private healthcare and free fruit, and you might even get a 6-figure salary and an Audi R8 if you're really lucky. But it's a fantastic place to work and really passionate people. And I want to close with a 30-second video. It's my favourite Jagex video that we call Love What You Do, that just tries to sum that up for you. Cool, that's me. Just to say, if you do want to start a career with Jagex, that's your starting point. That's where you go. We've got all of our jobs on there, including jobs in player support, if you're interested. Thank you. Should I do run a little?
So, obviously 20 years now, the company's been around.
Uh-huh.
Have you sort of established a system where you look outwards to other games where you can identify problems that you might have, like coming to the platform?
Do you mean in terms of publishing other people's games?
No, any sort of issue, really. Like even from like ways of cheating or.
Oh right. Well, I guess we just kind of roll there and just see what happens, and it's quite a reactive thing. So we build the heuristics. So obviously we know the game updates before they happen, what they're going to look like. So we can try and predict and be proactive about thinking how people will cheat and how they will get around this. But there's nothing like live testing in live ops game when it goes out, and especially stress testing as well. Lots of things are stress test based. So yeah, we try and predict it, but no, we don't get it right all of the time, so it's quite hard to do. But in terms of publishing other games, if you were coming from that angle, we've kind of looked at that, and we have some thoughts on that, and we might do it. I think that the problem is the Jagex and the RuneScape brand is so kind of embedded and so old now and well known that it's quite hard to attach that to other games that if we don't make them in-house. But we are exploring that as a sort of diversification thing. We are looking at potentially looking at publishing opportunities. Hello.
What job role did you start at when you joined Jagex?
So I joined as a player support agent. So I'm not a creative person, don't have a games degree. So I joined as player support, shift leader, team leader, that normal kind of responsibility stuff. Then I went into community management, became a community manager. Jagex at the time had a games portal called FunOrb, so I was a lead for that. Then built up a CM team, then I moved into the community management for the RuneScape team. And then we outsourced some work to the Philippines in Southeast Asia for some of our support work, and I was seconded out there for 6 months. I went to the Philippines to set that up. And then when I came back, I was kind of lost touch with the community management stuff a bit, so I went back to my home of kind of player support and went back as running the player support department. But yeah, always player support or community management.
Hi. So one thing I wanted to just quickly ask about was in regards to the Jagex node kind of philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to some of the things we were talking about, like private servers
Mm-hmm.
and gold farming, obviously in those sorts of situations,
Yeah.
it's a bit harder to kind of incorporate that sort of philosophy. And I just
Yeah.
wondered, how ruthless have you had to be sometimes with some of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, well, quite well. It's legal takedown stuff normally, so it's quite ruthless, yeah. But we do things like say, look, rather than running a private server, why don't you run a fan site and we'll offer you some support with that. We could maybe do some funding for that. You could have a bit of insight and update information ahead of the public and things like that. If you want to try and make money out of the game, but do it legally and run a sort of fan site or some kind of wiki support site or something like that. But generally, people in that kind of game are, you know, they're not the most ethical people because we're already running private servers and gold selling sites and things like that. So they generally don't take up those opportunities. But you're right, there's a few cases where we do just, you know, we can't always apply the Jagex node.
Reach out first for those sorts of things. So
Yeah, yeah. If there's opportunity to and it's appropriate, you know, then we would, yeah.
I was just checking to see if it was sort of going straight in with a cease and desist, or if you would
Right.
try and talk.
No, we do. No, we always have dialogue first before cease and desist, but they normally end up at cease and desist because they just don't cooperate, and they're very hard to track down and legally pin down anyway. So there's almost no incentive for them to comply with cease and desist. But yeah, that's the path we take.
Brilliant, thank you.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to know, is there any like, to be like a player support, do you need any experience or skills to do that?
Not really. I mean, experience in a customer service sort of or customer facing role is quite useful, particularly online. So in Cambridge, where we are within our catchment area, we have so Spotify are on the same science park as us, as our Booking.com. So we do get a lot of people from those two places. So experience of online customer service is useful, but it's more about kind of being a smart person that can do creative solutions, that can get on with the team, that understands the Jagex approach to things. You know, someone. Experience of planning and projects and time management and things like that are all sort of highly valued. So they're the main things that we look for.
Like mathematical or knowledge?
Not really. There's some basic requirements for sort of analytical skills and just basic understanding of Office Suite and things like that, but not anywhere, not a scary level.
So I noticed that one of the people there said that they've been playing the game for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not the first time I've heard that. Do you actually look favourably on people that have been long-term players of your game?
Yeah, I mean, so we talk about this, and in fact, in our assessments, when we're assessing people for customer support, we sometimes put the question to candidates and say, are all customers equal? And then depending whether they say yes or no, we do a different sort of line of questioning. But our view is that all customers are not equal. So, you know, clearly if someone's a free player and they've just created an account, they are not the same as someone that's been paying and playing for 10 years, or might have 20 accounts, or they're a content creator, or they're an influencer, or, you know, something like that. So, you know, we have to, because we can't deal with 500,000 people at the same time, we have to use something to divide people up. So we tend to go with commercial value.
I was kind of meaning more when you employ them.
Oh, right,
So when
sorry.
when you employ a person,
Yeah.
do you favour people that have played the game? a lot
It's worked both ways. We've employed people that have been really passionate about the game and played it for years, and actually they've turned out to be a bit of a nightmare because they can't detach the fact of, like, I'm a player from I now work for the company. So even something we would say, well, we can't do that for these really sensible commercial reasons. They can't get out of the mindset of, yeah, but as a player, I would really like that. And we're like, yeah, we get the passion, we get the enthusiasm, but it just doesn't work on a commercial level. So, but then we've had people as well that are real experts, and you can't, because you can't train someone, can't say, go and play RuneScape for 10 years, you know, and I'll pay you to do that so you can be an expert answering player inquiries. So it's either really valuable or it's an absolute nightmare, and it's a flip of a coin, really. It generally works out to be okay. But it's not something we actively seek. It's in our job requirements, we put kind of essential, desirable, and then I think we put like our swipe right person or something, and under that swipe right thing we do put like a, you know, experience of the game knowledge. Yeah.
Would you say that experience and knowledge in like programming and game development is necessary to start in player support? Is that not something that you would want?
Not in support. Some SQL knowledge is useful because we use a lot of SQL heuristic stuff, but it's not really. But it just shows that you have got that level of competency, and we do look at people when they come into support, and we do say realistically they're probably not going to stay with us for years and years and years. So we do think a bit more linear and say, well, actually, you know, there are other roles within the studio that probably this person could end up in. So they wouldn't really play a part in the actual assessment for a support role. We'd be mindful of it. And if we had to split two candidates, then obviously we'd go with someone that had those skills over someone that doesn't, as a mechanic, to split the people thinking about what careers they might do further down the line. God, I'm not getting easy here.
So you actually just said about not all players are equal,
Mm.
and then you mentioned the word influencer.
Mm-hmm.
How do you use
Well, or
influencers
content
and
creator might be the
why?
more. Well, just because they've got reach, yeah, so they've got that viral impact. Everything they say is sort of spread out there and recorded, and everyone's heard it. You know, they're promoting the game for free. They're normally decent people. We work with them. Some of them professional players. They come to our fan conventions and things like that. So it's just the reach and impact that they have on the community, really. I mean, you probably all watch Twitch live streams, and you take more notice of the professional players probably than the studios behind the games. If the professional player says this is cool content, you'll probably go and play it. If we say it's cool content, they say, well, we're not sure yet, we'll try it.
So you don't actually pay them, but you actually
No, but they get kind of assistance with things, so they get advanced update stuff, they get to play test stuff before it goes into the public domain and stuff like that. And we help them out with our fan conventions, so they get a nice hotel and travel sorted out and all that sort of thing. And, just oil the wheels.
Anyone else?
I'll understand if you can't answer, but how does Jagex handle kind of like heavy political, you know, situation? Like, you know, not to reference too closely, but the whole thing with Blizzard, for example, like, has that happened to you guys? And how do you look at it?
I mean, we do. Yeah, it's obviously an issue, and we just kind of like we have a media team, yeah. So they really take all of those kind of, so they do their trawls of the media every day, and they have their press packs, and they work out what you're going to say on behalf of the company. So they'll respond to anything like that happens. So we recently presented at the DCMS thing, for example, in London. So I think EA went there and they sent some lawyers, and we sent some people from the studio that just do the job. And if you've watched those DCMS committee reports, you do get a different view according to who's talking. And it's sometimes about how authentic you can be. So sometimes a lawyer is saying exactly the right thing, but it just doesn't sound authentic. And that's, the whole surprise mechanics thing. You've probably heard that. It's all been memed up and everything. I think that came from the EA lawyers who were talking about surprise mechanics. That's not something we said at the committee because we're a bit more authentic about it. But yeah, there's sensitive stuff like that. But the media team just deal with that stuff. They're the experts and we let them do it.
Yes, a question, as you said, generally from player support. Do you have active people who are supporting in the game as the other players?
Yeah, so like volunteer players. So we call them player moderators. So they're people in the game. They can mute other players that are just like, take the heat out of a situation. If someone's just being a bit of an idiot, but it's not really the worst thing in the world, they can just mute them for an hour and stop them talking. We have people helping on Twitter, community helpers. They farm most of our stuff through Twitter. We don't do much on Twitter at all. We have community helpers who are just players really who know the advice we would give anyway, so they just give the advice, get there faster and quicker than we could. And we have people moderating our forums as well, although our forums are slowing down and our community are more on Reddit and things like that now, but we do have forum moderators as well. These guys don't get paid or anything like that. There's nothing in it for them other than the kudos of being, sort of a moderator. But yeah, we work with them. They have private forums. They can contact us, and we have Skype calls with them and things like that.
Anyone else? I have a question. Speaking of that, you're in a unique position in Jagex that you've seen communities come from sort of their early seed stage all the way to very mature online game communities. Yeah. My question is, do you think communities are safer now, game communities, or as dangerous or more dangerous?
I think, if you look at things like child protection, so if you go back to like when I was a kid, and that really was a long time ago, but if someone wanted to abuse a child, for example, they had to really dedicate time and effort to it and get a job in the healthcare industry or something like that, get trusted by their employer, get access to children, would have to go to extreme lengths to give themselves access to children and carry out that behaviour. Whereas today I can create an account in 40 seconds and be in game and talking to kids on our platform or any other platform. So I think the access is easier, but then the heuristics and tools that we deal with are obviously much more advanced as well. So I don't really know if it's worse or not, but I think we can tackle it better. But the access is obviously a problem. And then things like encrypted peer-to-peer messaging services and things like WhatsApp. I don't know what that's like. It must be quite awful, I would have thought, for that sort of stuff. And that stuff didn't exist in the past, so that's another avenue that offenders could use. But yeah, the tools are well developed, because in the past it would always been, we just think this person's a bit dodgy, and that's all you really had to go on. Whereas now we have quantifiable evidence, we have chat logs, we can do IP and ISP traces, we can subpoena service providers to give IP assignments and things like that. As long as it's to identify or detect a crime, you can still do that even with GDPR. So, I think I've not seen an increase in stuff that we escalate. I think it's fairly steady, but I'd say the tools we've got to deal with is better, but yeah, a different mix thing, yeah.
All right, well, you're the good guys. So.
Yeah, we're the good guys.
I think that's it. If we can give a big hand of...
Cool, thank you.